Okay. Welcome to the Hanson Board of Selectmen meeting. Tonight is Tuesday, December 17th. This meeting is being televised on Whitman Hanson Cable Access Television, and we've asked Mr. Owen Golden to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Will you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Owen. Nicely done. We are going to have Mr. Bloss read our public announcements and upcoming meetings, and then we're going to go into executive session. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Mr. Bloss.
Town offices will be closed at noon on Christmas Eve, Tuesday, December 24th, and reopen on Thursday, December 26th. The 64th Annual Red Acres Christmas Sing-Along will be held on Sunday, December 22nd from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. at 517 West Washington Street in Hanson, Massachusetts. It is a free event open to the public. Santa will drop by and there will be hot chocolate and caroling around the fire. For more information, contact Teresa Santalucia at 781-447-3192 or check out the Red Acres Annual Christmas Sing page on Facebook. Finally, the Freezin' for a Reason Polar Plunge fundraiser will take place on January 26th, 2020 at 1 p.m. at Cranberry Cove to benefit the Hanson Parent Teacher Organization. Bad weather alternate date of February 2nd, 2020. Participants must register prior to the event at eventbrite.com. The first 75 participants to register will receive a winter hat. The assessor's office will be closed on Friday, December 20th. Volunteers are needed on the following committees: 200th Anniversary, Capital Improvement, Conservation Commission, regular and 2 associate members, Cultural Council, Disabilities, Economic Development, Finance Committee, Highway Building Committee, Historical Commission, Memorial Day Patriotic Observance, Memorial Field Trustees, and Zoning Board Alternate. Applications for appointment and info on the committee is available on the town website, www.hanson-ma.gov. Upcoming meetings, Tuesday, January 7th and Tuesday, January 28th of 2020, Board of Selectmen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bloss. With that, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Read what it is, why we're going in.
Yes, to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, to wit, highway director and town administrator, and further, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of a public body and the chair so declares. Opioid litigation. With that, roll call.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to... Welcome back. We are out of executive session and we are moving on to our regular open meeting. And first up on new business is Mr. Owen Golden to discuss an Eagle Scout project proposal. Mr. Golden, we would love it if you would feel comfortable going up to the podium. Feel free to do that, and we'd love to hear about your project.
Good evening. My name is Owen Golden. I'm a senior at Whitman Hanson High School, and I am a Life Scout in Troop 68. And I was looking for approval to build a 4x10 lean-to style shed at the Hanson Organic Community Garden site at 228 High Street. The shed is in need because there currently is no other shed that the gardeners can use. Their equipment has to be stored outside year-round, and in like a New England winter like we have around here, that can damage the hoses. There have been reports that some of the tools that some gardeners have left out have been stolen. So
And what type of, what are you, I assume then that it's gonna have locks and that type of thing on it?
Yes,
or-
we
Okay.
are planning to do lock system.
And so talk to us about who's gonna be involved in the project, how you're raising money and all that type of thing.
So some of the people who would be assisting building the shed would be my family, some of my friends and fellow scouts, and anyone else who offers me help.
Okay. And how are you raising money for the project?
I plan on raising money through some donations, holding bottle and can drives, to raise money for the shed.
And what do you think you need to raise? What ballpark figure do you think you need to?
We've estimated somewhere around like up to $1,400.
Okay. And Matt, I know you're on the Plymouth County Reuse.
Yep.
Are you guys on board with this? Were you?
I don't think the committee itself was aware of the project, but moving forward, it sounds like the community garden is going to stay where it is.
Right.
And I think this would be a great addition as someone that helped started the community garden up there. That's something that would really bring us into the next century up there with the nice new fence and now a nice lean-to to help store things, so it'd be great.
Okay, great. Did anybody else have any? Mr. Hickey?
Owen, when is the start date for the project?
We don't have an exact date yet. I'm going to try to find a place I can start to build the shed parts inside during the winter, which would be approximately March, and then hopefully have a date where we actually put it together in April. If we can't find that, then we would be starting in April or late March, whenever the weather permits.
Okay.
What's your drop dead date that you have to have this done by?
So I have to have the project completed by my 18th birthday, because then I'm no longer eligible to make, which is June 23rd, 2020.
Okay, all right. So you've got a little bit of time, not a ton, but enough. Yeah. Okay.
Mr.
Yes,
Chair,
Mr. Dyer.
last question is where would it be located up at the garden?
Towards like the back, almost the middle, is a designated spot.
In the middle of the garden itself?
Yes,
Okay,
inside
Okay,
the fencing
perfect.
area.
thank you.
Any other questions, guys?
Just one more
Mr. Hickman.
comment, Owen. When you do have the date and you have a date for your fundraiser, if you could just drop a line to the Board of Selectmen, we'll announce it. Okay, so that, that may help. Okay, with a few more bottles and cans.
Yeah, and we can also put it up on the town hall sign, so if you can get word to our office, we might be able to kind
All
of
right.
get word out there for you.
One additional thing to build the shed, I believe I will need a building permit. I was wondering if you guys could possibly waive that. If not, that's
You're not saying waive the permit, waive the fee.
yeah, the fee.
Obviously, we can't
No,
waive
no,
the
you
need
can-
for the permit, but.
Yes.
Waive the fee. We're able to do that, right, Mary?
Yes, you are.
Yep.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion on that.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of waiving the fee for Owen Golden? Okay, great. So you get that on lockdown.
All right.
So minus 50 to your
Yeah.
fundraising efforts.
I like how you slid that in at the end. Nice job.
It did a build-up to it. Any other questions?
No?
Okay, all in favor of approving Owen's project? Well, I need a
Is there
motion.
So
Yeah.
moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, great.
Good luck.
Congratulations, good luck, and thanks for doing that.
Time and consideration.
Well,
Thank you.
Okay, next up, annual license renewal. Mary?
Can I suggest, since we have people here, we can skip those and do those later? Nobody really
Sure.
needs to be here for that.
That
or
sounds
listen
great.
to it.
So why don't we, Mr. Singer, we couldn't help but notice you coming in. Welcome, Josh Singer, Hanson Business Network. And Josh, we've got you on the agenda to talk to us about updates on events that the lovely people from Hanson Business Network might be doing.
I like the podium. Yeah, so I'm just here on behalf of the Hanson Business Network just to announce some good updates on our upcoming events that we have in collaboration with the 200th Anniversary Committee. So our 4th annual bicentennial edition, Hanson Business Network St. Patrick's Day, this year or next year, it's going to be on March 14th from 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. at the Needles Lodge over at Camp Kawani. Last year, we were able to raise close to $5,000 for the food pantry. So this has become a really good staple event for us. We are still voting on what the cause for donation is going to be this year. We tend to choose a new cause each year. So we're still making a final decision there, but we did make a final decision on the 14th, 6:30 to 9:30, Needles Lodge. Tickets will go out on sale well ahead of time as they have in the past. The other event that I wanted to just make the board and everybody here aware of as well is our 2nd edition of our bicentennial edition for Hanson Day. So that will be in 2020 on June 6th from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. We're going to shorten it an hour this year, just based on some feedback. And the plan is to have that right on the town green as we did last year. So just a little side note there. For anybody out there who would like to assist us with the event, we're putting together a committee to do so. You can just let me know. My email is just my name, joshua.singer@edwardjones.com, and we'd love to have anybody from town who might want to get involved.
Okay, great. And as soon as our new town administrator comes, I'd love for you to sit down and talk to him and hopefully get Greer and him on board with Hanson Day so we can give you the support that we gave you last year.
Much appreciated. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Singer?
Ms.
Yes.
Chair, can I make a motion to approve the use of the town green for June 6, 2020 for Hanson Day?
Sounds fabulous. Get ahead of the ball.
Yep.
There, yep.
Second.
I like the way you
Okay,
think.
all in favor? Okay, great. Anything else? We'll keep up the good work. We appreciate the partnership of the small businesses in town and everything that they do for the community and, the various nonprofits, and thank you for all your hard work.
Yeah, we'll do, and we'll look to make these events better this year and build upon them from here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And I don't know if Ms. Petty was able to see you, but Deb Petty was very interested in meeting you, the town planner.
Okay.
She,
I just briefly spoke to her on the phone.
okay, well, she's here tonight, and she would love to talk to you if you get a chance.
Okay.
Okay?
Upstairs in the planning office.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she was here a minute ago.
Okay, moving on. Discussion with National Grid and winter preparedness. So I had asked Mary, in a bit of frustration, why we seem to lose power every time somebody sneezes here in Hanson, and other surrounding towns don't seem to have that problem. And I'm really hard pressed to figure it out. It seems like it's, when other towns do, they maybe lose it for an hour and we lose it like for days on end. And I'm trying not to feel like an outsider, but it's really hard. When I go into work, people are like, "Are you kidding me that you guys lost power again?" I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, but we are losing power. So I would really like to hear from National Grid on what is going to be done to make sure that we're being treated the same way that other towns are, and that we are in fact a priority, and that we are not second fiddle. And I'd also like to know what we're doing to get ready for the winter, because we have an abundance of trees here in Hanson, as you know. It's one of the things we love, but it's also one of the things that we don't so much love when it freezes and the weather gets bad and trees break and fall and limbs, come down on houses and what have you. So I'm not sure. I know we've got people from National Grid. Okay. Okay, great. So I don't know who's best to address those issues. You can take them. I know you've also got some cutting that you're doing in preparation, but I would like to hear, what are we doing right here, right now, to make sure that the citizens of Hanson are not being, losing power at a rate that's just really getting kind of ridiculous. And And just so I can level set this, it's a mere inconvenience to some people, but to a lot of people, quite a few people that may be on oxygen tanks or in precarious health positions, it's more than an inconvenience. It's downright dangerous and life-threatening. And I've had a couple of elderly people in town that are on oxygen tanks that live in fear of us losing electricity. And so I would really implore you to do whatever you can. So with that, I will turn it over to you, and I'd love to hear what you've got to say.
What I'm going to do is, I'm just going to get up and introduce myself, and then I'll introduce Brian. My name is Joe Cardinal. I'm the Manager of Community and Customer Relations for the South Shore. During storm events, I am in charge of all of the community liaisons that we send out to the field. During a major storm, we send a community liaison out to every city and town. The one that comes to Hanson reports to Chief Thompson, and more or less works under the direction of Chief Thompson, reporting priorities back to us in Brockton. I'm also in charge of the municipal room in Brockton, so that municipal officials have a special number that they're allowed to call in during storm events and get updates from us. So what I'm going to do now, what we have is, after each event, each storm event, and I've brought some drawings that I can sort of show you after Brian has a chance to talk, we look at where the outages are, where the worst performing feeders are, that we call them, that come out of the substations and serve all of the customers. So we found this one particular feeder that serves a good portion of Hanson, comes from East Bridgewater, comes from, it's Spring Street in East Bridgewater, which is basically behind the new CVS on Route 18. A lot of exposure, comes a long way. Comes through East Bridgewater, comes through the right-of-way in East Bridgewater behind the Central Middle School to make its way down into Hanson. So our group of arborists have looked at it and said, okay, during every storm event, we have tree issues on this feeder. And what happens is, tree's out, so it's going to knock that feeder out for the whole length of time. Once it's out for an extended period of time, after repairs are made, then you have to go up and down, and you have to look at every single house that's on that feeder to make sure there's not an additional wire down before you can re-energize it. Unfortunately, that takes a lot of time. So what we've done is we've got this expanded tree management program where over 200 trees on this feeder in town.
Those are just town trees, those don't include private.
Yeah, so why don't you come on up and go over what your plan is to do with the trees, and then I can go over some other stuff afterwards.
Yeah, no problem. My name's Ryan Kress. I'm an arborist for National Grid's EVM program. Robert Richter was working with me on the circuit, so between the two of us, we can probably answer most of your questions as far as the project that's currently going on. Your tree warden has a map of the exact streets which we're working, but what's been proposed is the state's having us do a new trim spec, basically, for the circuit. We'll be clearing back 8 feet from the power line, so it's not from the poles, it's from the actual power line, back in each direction. Any trees which would need to be removed have been permitted with the town through the tree warden. Ground cutting of undesirable species, so like oak, maples, stuff like that that's growing up underneath the lines that could cause outages, those would all be cut. We would leave stuff like, the apple trees and stuff, those we just go through and trim. They're desirable species, taking up space. We would prefer them to be there, because they'll help keep down some of the other trees that would be growing up. While we are doing that work, we're also doing some hazard tree work at the same time. So dead and dying trees that we see along the line, if they're within, approximate distance where they can actually hit the line, we are opting to try and remove those even if they're on private property. We permission those through the homeowners. The 8 feet pretty much covers most town trees, which your tree warden would give us permits for, which he already has. And pretty much we're doing that from in town here, Elm Street, part of Franklin, Main Street, Monpont, High Street, and then there's some side roads here and there off of those, which we would do also. The circuit, as he said, runs from East Bridgewater. The entirety of the circuit is getting done. The work in Pembroke is already complete. The work in East Bridgewater is already complete. Halifax is almost halfway done. Once Halifax is complete, we'll keep working our way up Elm Street, which is where the main feed for the line comes up into your town. This project will be basically being worked on all winter long into the spring, basically. It's probably going to take us all the way into April as far as getting all of the tree work done, because it's a lot of work. If you ever drove up or down those roads, there's a lot of trees there. So
Now, can you help us, and I appreciate you guys coming tonight, and I appreciate you having a plan and addressing it, I really truly do. And I also appreciate all the hard work that the linemen do during the storms. You guys are responsive when we've got problems, and I appreciate the contact with Jerry, and I know you guys work cooperatively. That said, if I'm a homeowner and I'm along this path, what is that gonna look like for me to have a conversation? I assume I'm not gonna go out my back door and I've got a swath cut through my backyard and...
no, all
Okay.
trees are tagged and permissioned with the homeowners if they're on private property. We even go as far as permissioning the town trees in front with the homeowners so that they're aware that those are going to be removed. So most homeowners already have received paperwork. A bunch of them have already signed up for the work. We've had a couple of people that have declined to work on their property. Hopefully that doesn't affect your power in the future, but I mean, that's also an option. You know, they're private trees. We can't just remove them, obviously.
Understood, yeah.
So as far as the work goes, and the private homeowners, they all get notified. Most of them have been being notified pretty much since July, I believe, is when we started here, maybe back even into June is when we started working on this circuit. I think we got into Hanson around beginning of September for this part.
Sounds about right.
And we started running through the town about September, marking and leaving out paperwork for homeowners, most of which have gotten back to us at this time.
So also to touch on that, to answer part of your question, is our work that Ryan and I are doing with this enhancement program on the three-phase is only on the three-phase portion of the line, which is the main backbone of the feeder. Any interruption on that part of the line anywhere affects the entire grid, two-phase, single-phase. So we're only doing the three-phase. So customers have all been notified of all the work that Ryan and I are doing on the streets that he noted. Well, you're saying there's going to be other residents in town because this entire circuit is up for trimming this year. So there will be other streets and other areas in Hanson that will have tree crews working on it that we have not spoken with. So yes, there's going to be, you know, your side roads and everything and power lines that run through people's backyards. You might still have some people calling in, hey, there's tree guys in my backyard doing tree trimming. So the entire circuit for Hanson is up for trimming. We're just enhancing the three-phase portion of the line, which is the highest priority part of the line. And to note too, we're also removing all the overhang from the feeders. A big portion in storms is the stuff goes ways up the trees, breaks off and falls on the lines. So one of the main things we're trying to touch on this is to remove all that overhang back 8 feet, which should cut down on the number of outages significantly for you.
And you all probably noticed the Lewis truck that was bouncing around kind of house from house about last month. One of the other things that we did when we came through was secondary lines, so house lines, basically that come off pole to the house. I went through and I surveyed all of those along the three-phase to see which ones had hard contact on the line with limbs or soft contact where it was within 18 inches where the branch would come down if it was heavily snowed and cause contact with the line. Most of those, if not all at this point, have been trimmed out. That's why you saw that truck running around from house to house.
Okay, but just for safety and, you know, like, we shouldn't be expecting willy-nilly for somebody purporting to be a tree guy to show up without some kind of a notification from you guys.
Well, that's all private work on private property, so all of those homeowners were notified beforehand.
Yes.
Okay, they were.
So it's just, you know, most people drive down the road and they just see the truck pull in, trim out the service, take a couple limbs off that were in hard contact with the line, or in some cases we had a couple small dead trees which were already hanging on top of the lines that we had to remove real quick. Stuff like that. All of this work is completely permission based, so all of this stuff the homeowners get paperwork for.
But for instance, if I'm a homeowner and I say, wait a minute, there's some guy trimming a tree and he says he's private, but he's doing it on your behalf for National Grid, is there a number people can call?
We leave a slip with either his cell phone number or my cell phone number.
That's for our part of the project. I believe you're talking about the rest of the circuit as well.
Yep.
Okay, so if anybody calls in, I'll direct this over to what number would they call, because every person that's a contractor for National Grid or a tree trimmer will be able to give you their identification, in which case they can call, you know, the homeowner can call in, or they can give you or any member here a call, and you guys can check into this, and if you can
Check with
them.
me, that customer service line.
Or you can call us, because I generally know exactly where the tree crews are on any given day. We've got a couple of lines that run cross country in Hanson, which we've actually already started. One running back behind South Street where the Lewis crews have already done a bunch of that work up through there.
Yeah, I've seen them. And so we could get through the tree warden, connect with you guys, and he'd know, if you didn't know who it was, you could put us in contact with somebody who would be able to tell
Correct.
us.
It'll either be Lewis or Stanley for this particular circuit. We have a crane crew which is working starting probably tomorrow, I do believe, and Thursday, and then skipping next week, the week after, we have a crane crew that'll be running up and down the lower part of Elm Street in Halifax to help get some of the larger trees along so that the bucket crews don't have to take so much time taking those down, just to kind of get them moving along the lines a little faster. But pretty much for this circuit, it'll only be Lewis tree or Stanley tree what you'll see doing work. If that was to change, I would let your tree warden know, because he is our primary contact by law, so that's who we have to
And
deal
if
with.
somebody has a concern, they should also run that through our tree warden. If, for instance, it's something you guys maybe didn't identify, but they're looking out and they're going, this looks perilous.
Yes.
Yes.
We
Okay.
implore them to call and get a hold of us as soon as possible. Don't wait for the next day. If it's a concern of theirs, the sooner they get a hold of us, the sooner we can address the concern, and the sooner we can.
As we come through to do the work, pretty much nearly every house gets a slip with our number and contact information on it ahead of time before the trimming and removal start along that road. I'm currently, actually just did that a day ago on Elm Street down in Halifax. It's just a small slip to let people know that the work is starting, what the trim spec will be, as well as my contact information if there's questions or concerns.
Okay, awesome.
Every tree being removed is tagged and painted with an X on it, so we've tried to take a lot of the guesswork out of it, so these small things don't show up. But again, if anybody has any concerns, the sooner they reach out to us, the sooner we can move forward.
There is a cutoff for tree size for that, so anything above 8 inches in diameter gets an X. Anything below that, just because there's so many of it, we would still be writing up paperwork in East Bridgewater at this point if we were Xing every small 2-inch diameter
Right,
tree.
okay.
So anything below that grid is just considering brush, and we have had the tree warden sign a brush removal permit for us, stating that it's okay if we remove those trees within the town bounds underneath the power lines there.
Okay, great.
And again, we've discussed all that with every homeowner that this is going to
Okay,
impact.
Mr. Dyer?
Three quick things. Could we grab business cards for you guys, just so we have them on?
Unfortunately, our program is new. You guys are probably familiar with the hazard tree mitigation program that periodically comes through in town. So I work for that. He was hired on for EVM. As of right now, that program is not currently working. Everybody who was working that program is working this program to kick it off.
We haven't had our cards made up yet, so if you'd
All
like, we can see you. Thank you.
I'll give you my minute.
I was like, this is a lot of jargon. Okay, but the bottom line is we can get your card,
Yep.
and you guys are in transition, but when you
Yep.
finish, we'll get
We
your
can
cards.
definitely leave our contact
great.
information.
Your tree
Okay.
warden has our phone number. I can leave my phone number with you guys. Like, we can stop off, we call. I've been
Yeah,
in
if you could just
contact.
email it to us, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And
Actually,
then
I
the
think I emailed
second.
you before my contact information, correct? Yes.
And then the second thing too is if a homeowner has a tree near the power lines at their house, can they call into National Grid, just the main line, and just say, hey, I have a big hazardous tree about to fall on the line.
People do every day,
All
and
the time.
we send people out to look
I get
at it.
calls every day, and then what I usually do is I'll flip it over to our arborist, say, can you take some of these out there, take a look at it?
Yep.
To see if it's close enough that it's an issue and something
Great,
needs to be done.
thank you. Yeah, so that way, I know, because cutting trees can be prohibitive to some people, where it could be thousands of dollars to cut down a tree. So it's kind of nice to know that that's an option.
We implore people to call in first too and let us take a look and make sure it's safe for them to do themselves
Sure.
before they attempt doing it.
Because
That's
we
always a
have
good
some
idea.
trees that have hard contact on the line, and you obviously don't want somebody who is not qualified to be working around electricity, messing with a tree that is physically in contact with power lines. So those we'd come and we'd make them safe, either before we were to have them dealt with or before the homeowner would.
Yep. And then lastly, I just want to say thank you very much. I know in the past you guys have always sponsored our Arbor Day trees. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for sponsoring the program.
Good point.
All right.
Mr. Hickey?
Joe, from where the feeder is to Elm Street, and I was looking for a key on the map, there isn't one. Do you know mileage, how many miles that is?
Almost 5.
Almost 5. So basically, anywhere along that line from the feeder, from 797 W24, if a tree falls anywhere, Hanson's going to be affected no matter what.
Correct.
Yes.
It is, however, basically blown out almost 40 feet on each side for the most part, plus we just went through and we trimmed.
Are you talking about the off-road section?
Correct.
Oh, you can almost find it
I've,
after.
I've basically walked that 7 times now.
Yeah.
So our work in that area just completed last month before they moved into another section of right-of-way. And so what we did for the trimming portion of it was any branches within 8 feet back were cut. We removed a bunch of trees along the sideline. There is some work down in there which we have to wait for it to be cold enough that we can put tree crews down there because it's too wet to work at the moment.
Basically, we can't get in there until it's frozen.
Yeah.
And on that,
Equipment down in there.
I'll
yeah.
touch on that section in there. That's what's considered a right-of-way section, an off-road section. They can get a little more aggressive with the tree cutting and keeping the right-of-way back far enough. Now, we can never stop all tree-related outages. I mean, obviously, if an 80-foot tree 40 feet back fails, there could be an outage. But as far as that section goes, I believe that would be a very low priority section for tree failure for as wide open as the right-of-way actually is.
Okay, and I have just one other question. Did you lose power Sunday night for like a minute?
A lot of town
What?
did, yeah.
Can you explain what happens, why that happens?
Yes, okay, that's a fairly simple one. On the line, they have what they call reclosures. So if you do have a hard contact somewhere along the circuit within a reclosure area, what a reclosure does is it allows an object to land onto a power line, and then it turns the power on and off a couple of times for split seconds. Hopefully that doesn't melt the line, and it burns the obstruction enough to fall off of the line, and then power reinstates itself. So that's why you'll get that the power clicks on, the power clicks off, the power clicks on. That's the reclosures doing their job and hopefully just burning off that obstruction.
Okay.
Hopefully not
Because
first.
I think there may have been a lot of people that
Yes, there
didn't
were.
know that.
Yeah, well, that's due, you get a lot of animals and stuff that crawl up on the lines, and that's pretty much gives them a zap. They fall down, the line goes back on. A smaller tree limb, something the size of your pinky falls out of a tree and lays across 2 phases. It zaps it enough to make it burn in half and fall off of the lines, and then the power stays on, other than a hard contact shorts it and shuts the power down.
Okay.
That could have very well been a branch that came down with the wind on
Yep.
that we had
Oh,
on
yeah.
Sunday.
Right.
It just came down and operated the recloser as it fell off. Fortunately, it fell off. There was no damage to the
Yep.
line, so the recloser closed back in, and it helped.
Yeah, that's helpful, Jim, because people were perplexed. It was like a weird,
Yeah.
yeah. And not everybody, but just a little
Yeah,
section.
and
Yeah.
those are also, the reclosures work in isolated areas
Yeah.
from each other, so I don't know how to explain it to where you'd see them on the line, but they're usually 3 little boxes up on a cross arm somewhere, and you'll see them intermittently throughout the entire circuit, and they work independently of each
Oh,
other.
okay.
That's why it would be, on your block, you saw power go in and out for a couple of times, but the next block over never saw it. It's because those are working independently of each other.
All right, that's awesome.
10, 15 years ago, we didn't have reclosers, so when that branch came down, that was opened up.
Right.
And everything stayed open until we got out there
And a fuse would pop in.
fixed the fuses and put the fuses.
I have a question. On your hazardous tree removals, are you removing the entire tree or are you cutting the trees just below the wires?
We remove the entire tree.
That would
And,
Okay.
depend upon the tree specifically. So we have some trees where it's like a lead, where there's some rot in the lead, and we just have to take the lead off.
Right, that's
Most of the
understandable.
trees, it's trees that are dying, we have to take those all the way down to the ground.
I understand what your question was. You're saying, are we just making the tree safe in the lines?
Because I've seen
and then
mowers
leaving the
before
stuff
where
there?
they'll come in and there's a rotted tree and they'll cut below the wires and then see you later, they're on to the next one.
Now, we ask people if they would like that in their yard, and I haven't had anybody say yes thus far, so we opt to, since we are approaching your customers and your town residents and asking them if we can come onto the property, cut the tree, we're also going an extra step and saying, okay, if you don't want the wood, we'll pick it up and remove it for you.
And the
Take the tree
second
all
question I
down.
have is, all your tree crews, are they EHAP certified?
Correct, you have to be a vendor for National Grid.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, great.
I just have a quick question. What happens to the trees that you actually cut down? People are concerned that they're laying there in the yard.
A
and they're not
multitude
gonna
of
be
things
picked up.
happens. One, obviously, they belong to a homeowner most of the time, so all town trees are automatically picked up. We pick up all that wood and we take it.
Okay.
And all private trees, every homeowner, we ask them if they either want to keep the firewood or if they want to get rid of it. If they want to get rid of it, all the tree crews have a lock truck working with them. We pick up lock truck loads of wood and then we divvy it up, give it up to whoever says they want it. So if anybody in town says they want firewood, we implore you to give a call. We'll direct them to the tree contractors and they can have as much as they want because we have hundreds of trees come down here.
Well, that's interesting because I know there's a proposal for some guys that are working with the Hanson Food Pantry to have some wood there for people that may need it during the winter to get through. And I didn't know that that was an option, so I'm going to see if I can
After this,
connect.
get a hold of us, and
Okay.
we will direct them to the tree crews, and if they have a place that they can get the truck and deliver wood, and it's okay with everybody, we'd be more than happy to get.
That's a good thing to know.
They would have to
Okay.
cut it to the whatever firewood size
They're
they want.
planning on doing that, but they just needed the raw material, but they were going to chop it all down to stove size.
When we deliver the wood,
Yeah.
it gets delivered in log length off
Yeah.
of a log
Yep.
truck, and if somebody wants it, it comes in a log truck load at a time, so I mean,
Yep.
it's anywhere from 8 to 12 cords of firewood that get delivered.
Yep.
But free of charge, yeah, if you want, please get a hold of us, we'll
That's
see-
good
set
to
that up for
know.
you.
That would be awesome. Keep
It
it.
is a variable species, so we can't say like they'll only get hardwood, because we can't promise that. There'll be pine mixed in all over.
No,
the
they can sort through it that way, but just to have a raw, source for it would be awesome. Any other questions? All right, again, thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Smith.
Firewood,
I work, when you're in emergency response, are you the liaison who works for the town? Is there one who's assigned to the town?
We have one that's assigned to the town. They report back to me in the Brockton office. So what happens is during a major event, the liaison will assign the liaison, we'll have him reach out to the fire chief, find out from the fire chief what the fire chief wants. Does he want him at the fire station? Does he want him back in Brockton? Does he want him by phone? We do what the fire chief asks. And then what the fire chief does is reports back to him with the priorities in the town. You've got a water pumping station, sewer pumping station out of any priorities that came in from the select board that need to get taken care of right away, those get funneled back to us. The other thing that need to know is residents that have oxygen, they should be calling our customer service line, letting them know that. And then they become a critical customer. And then what happens is when our engineering and operations are looking at the feeders and saying this feeder is locked out, they see that there's critical customers on it.
I think our fire chief also has a list of people that are, that are vulnerable.
Yeah.
But that's good to know.
So if we do have that option, I mean, if we have, everybody's out, if we've had storms where Hanson, East Bridgewater, Halifax, if everybody's out, then we go after the feeders, we can get the most people back on right away. And then we pick away at the critical facilities after that.
Okay, that's great to know. Any other questions, guys? All right, again, thank you so much. Thanks for all your hard work. And so this means when people sneeze in Hanson, we have a less likelihood of.
over the winter, we're gonna be working the project, so hopefully by next spring.
All right, Vistaprint. Get them in like 3 days.
One of the things that are important to understand, and I'll take this back, is that Hanson does not have a substation in town, an electric substation in town. Halifax does not have an electric substation. Pembroke does not have an electric substation. So to get the feeders out, obviously there's more exposure. We talked about this 5 miles. So I just wanted to give everybody a little picture of the stuff just doesn't come from Spring Street in East Bridgewater. It comes from the feed come down into Hanson from Plymouth Street in Abington. They come from Phillips Lane in Hanover, come from Water Street in Hanover. We're also just got approval for a new substation here in Pembroke, so in the 23-24 timeframe, there's going to be feeders that are going to be coming out of this substation that are going to head towards Hanson.
Okay.
What that does, it lowers the exposure of the feeders.
Well, who do we need to know to get a substation in Hanson?
You'd have to have a transmission circuit that runs through there that we could tap off of.
Okay.
That's basically what we need, and I'm not sure there is one in Hanson. I know there's one right there. That's why that substation is being built
We
there.
need a 500-foot right-of-way right through town, we can just clear every building and tree.
I know you've got them going through this way, like
Yep.
this direction. That's why you have 3 of them there. It comes up from this way.
That makes a lot of sense because there are literally cases where there are people that live like 1 street away and you've got a whole neighborhood that's got electricity, then the whole neighborhood doesn't. It's quite maddening in the throes of it.
Each different road may be fused back to the main line. So one individual street can be out while the entire rest of the circuit's on. And the reason for that is so that only that street is out if there's a problem on that street, and it doesn't put the whole line out.
Put it in perspective, it's kind of wired, kind of like your house is. So if you pop a circuit breaker
Yep.
in one room, you lose power to that one outlet or that one room, and the rest of the house is fine. A power circuit is set up identical to that. Everything is fused off and circuited in. You know, everything is its own little circuit breaker all over the place. You know, if you picture every transmission, every substation is a circuit breaker. So if something goes out on that one, you only lose what that feeds, and where it feeds in from other areas is fine.
Now, also, people should, as Matt mentioned, he mentioned now, if you notice a wire down, to report it, but certainly in the throes of a storm, to report it, and to call you guys. And I know we run into this a lot, where people will call the police and fire to say that their electricity's out. Well, police and fire really can't do that much, and even though they might be in the loop on what's going on, you know, they're really not the ones to report it to. And is it true that if you're getting more reports, then that sort of, you know, if people are calling, then you go, okay, Houston, we've got a problem here, we need to get on this?
Absolutely, that helps us to pinpoint the location of where the outage is. A lot of people think it's all automatic, that as soon as the power goes out, we're aware of it. It's not. We're working to get to that point. We're upgrading the facilities, we're upgrading the substations, where we'll be able to, in the future, be able to pin on it a little bit. When we get to smart meters too, that'll be nothing. I know some people aren't crazy about smart meters. They think we're seeing too much information, but that will also allow us to be able to pinpoint where the outages are. But yes, we recommend that everybody calls. I live in a neighborhood in East Bridgewater, and I can guarantee you that nobody calls from that neighborhood because they know that I live there. But, you know, because I'm working, I don't know. It's call so that we know that the power's up. The more people that call, the easier it is to pinpoint the problem.
Okay.
One thing I've noticed too, from working in the storerooms at National Grid, is if we can start getting the message out. If you have 5 people from one block call in about one down power line, and we get 5 separate addresses for that one spot, it'll generate 5 separate work tickets, which means we might come and dispatch a crew to check that same area 5 separate times because there's 5 tickets there. So if we can start getting people to call in, everybody, you know, if your neighbor's out, call in, give your neighbor's address for the thing. If it shows up with multiple addresses, we only show up one time.
So don't assume other people are calling, call in.
Yes, don't
Okay.
assume somebody else called in.
Yeah.
Call in, but everybody try to use the address of where the tree is, you know what I mean? So if you see a tree down across the street from you and it's at your neighbor's yard, when you call in, give your neighbor's address, not yours. Otherwise, if your neighbor calls in as well, we now have 2 separate work tickets to address. So one crew might come and address the ticket, address the tree condition. 2 hours later, another crew might show up at your house for no reason.
Yep.
Because you called in for your neighbor.
Not only that, but if you call National Grid, if it's not an emergency, that your power is out, because another thing that happens is, if you call the police then inform us, but it comes through 911, it creates a 911 call. There's different levels of 911 calls.
Okay.
And what happens is those 911 calls legally have to be addressed first. The problem is because so many people call the police, we get so many of them, we can't figure out which calls are valid, which calls actually are emergency situations, and which calls aren't. So we may be pulling up on something that we think, you know, there's a car fire or something, and it might just be a downed line in somebody's yard,
Yep.
which keeps us from being able to get to the emergencies in a more timely manner. So a lot of our time, especially the first day, is just going from 911 call to 911 call to 911 call, instead of being able to hit the 911 calls and then filter down through the more important stuff to get everybody's power back on.
Is a tree branch hanging near a power line is still critical, we need to address it. That isn't a 911 call. A 911 call is a tree came down and took down a power line and it has people pinned in a car. That's a 911 versus something is hanging near the line and it could possibly fall, but it comes in from an officer that automatically generates as 911, and that right to the top of the list.
Okay.
That's the other thing to remember during major events. You know, the past always used to be how quickly can we restore as many customers as quickly as possible. Now it's public safety. Usually that first day after a major event, the one we had in October, first day was almost entirely public safety. It was the wire down calls that we had received. It was to clear the fire and police apparatus that was standing by on our wires or the whole roads that were blocked. So basically that first day, almost nobody gets their power restored. We have to take care of the public safety first. And then we start going after the restoring the power. So that extends the outages, unfortunately, but that's the new way that we're forced actually to do that.
Okay, well, this is good information.
I can tell you that on the South Shore, All those substations that I pointed out, we're constantly upgrading them. We're adding feeders to them. I know there's Water Street one and Phillips Lane, we recently added feeders. What it does is once we add feeders, we bring in the exposure. The exposure is shortened up. We're able to add switching points, so if you have one feeder which you have an issue on it, you don't have to wait. We can re-energize from another feeder and back feed it to the area where there's a problem. So as we add more feeders, as we add the new substation there, that also eliminates the length of the outages too.
Okay, just so you know, bucket list item for me will be feeder in Hanson. Yeah. And Mr. Brady's got his representative here, so from us to you, whatever you can do to get us our own substation. In all seriousness,
Actually, I kind of made a note of that, where it might be beneficial. What happens, again, you would have to talk to the senator about, but
okay, well, we appreciate it.
Yeah, there certainly is this.
I'm sure there are, but, hope springs eternal. Okay, well, we really appreciate you guys coming in. Any other questions, guys? All right, well, thanks.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
and take care. We appreciate all the information. Yep, same to you. Okay, we're going to, I think, trying to think what the most effective next, shall we talk about the no-knock policy, or did you have another suggestion? We're taking things out. How about appointment and resignation of Gil Amato? And then Dory Jamison. Shall we have those conversations?
That's fine.
Okay. Appointment of health agent Gil Amato to South Shore Recycling Cooperative and Region 5 Public Health Emergency Preparedness Coalition. I would assume that's in keeping with his job, right?
Right, the request came down from the Board of Health to have it appointed, but apparently we're the appointing authority for those two items.
Okay, I
So-
mean, did anybody have any questions or concerns with that? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, great. Moving on to appoint Dory Jamison as Administrative Assistant to Recreation. Now, Mary, I think I shared with you that there were some concerns about the protocol of who the proper appointing authority was for the position of Administrative Assistant to the Recreation Commission. So what I'd like to know is if you could walk us through what was the process to get to where we are now, where you're making a recommendation? What was the legal opinion from our legal counsel on what the protocol was, and then we'll just kind of take it from there.
Okay, I followed the process that we've used historically for the position. The town administrator works with the chairman and generally the department head, but previously we didn't have a department head for recreation, so we had two members of the Recreation Commission review the applications, decide who they're going to interview, select the interviewees, and be part of the interviews. And then the town administrator make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. It's a clerical union position, the administrative position is. So that's a process that has been followed historically. And that's what I did.
So just to clarify, it's a position that, in essence, is ultimately going to report up through to the town administrator. The selectmen are appointing the Recreation Commission.
Correct.
And so I think some of the feedback that I've been getting from some of the Recreation Commission guys is that they just feel like they weren't part of that process. And it's somebody that they're going to be working with. And so can you just kind of address, that, and then also our legal counsel opinion?
Okay. Well, we got 11 applications, and what we did was send the applications to the chairman of the board to review, as well as Billy, the director. And we used those two people because that's what we have used with other positions. So if there were other members that, didn't get invited to participate, I wasn't involved in that. I sent it to the chairman, and we worked from there. So there were 11 applications. We each, including Greer, we all picked 5 people. Or 6 people, and we had like one extra person that nobody picked. So one person had picked. So we interviewed the 6 people who had made it through the cut, and they were all good applicants. they had varying skill sets for recreation. Some of them were more like program out there, playing basketball with the kids and things like that. One of them was, an event coordinator for some restaurants and things. And two of them were administrative people. So we had selected the one person who had the strongest administrative skills, because some of these people were just great people, but I said at the end, we need to pick the person who will fit the job description, which is administrative assistant. So the person that I'm recommending to the board is Dory Jameson, and she comes to us from the town of Abington. And I have known her, never met her in the years that I've known her, over 10 years, because she was somebody I could go to, how are you handling this, that thing, and from the selectman's office. She's right, absolutely. Yeah. And she was working in the selectman's office. And as I said to a couple people, her resume looks very similar to mine. She's been an assistant town administrator, an assistant town manager, during that period of time. So she's got great knowledge of how to run an office. She knows about open meeting law. She knows about ethics. She's a certified procurement officer, and she's maintained that. So when I saw her application come in, I thought, why would she want this job?
Obvious question.
And then I realized that you may recall when we had the interviews with the town manager from Abington, someone asked a question, what was your most difficult task? And he said it was eliminating a position. And it happened to be Dory's position that they ended up eliminating. So again, I'm wondering, why would she apply for this? So we brought her in, and the first question I ask in all interviews is, tell us about yourself. The second one is, why Hanson? Why do you want this job? And she explained that she's been out of work for a while she enjoyed being out of work. She really wants to work. She said she doesn't have to work, but she really wants to work. When she saw the posting, she said, this is a great position for me. It's part-time, I'm still into this. I'm looking for another 10 years of work, and this would be just what I want. So after we had her, we brought in some other people, and in the end, the three of us said the best person for the job would be Dory. So that's why I'm recommending her. Why the other members of the commission weren't involved in the process, we didn't give the applications to everyone, because this is confidential information. These people have other jobs. Dory didn't, but and you can't have this information out there and calls being made to employers and putting people at risk. So that's why we keep it as a close group of people part of the interview process. So that's where we are. Okay. So then when you were concerned about, the process I followed, I checked with council, sent them, the background information on it, and I talked to Kate, and she said, she sent an email to us just saying that as the Recreation Commission is appointed by the Board of Selectmen, the Town Administrator Act says the departments that are under the jurisdiction of the Board of Selectmen, which is the Recreation Commission, is under the jurisdiction of the Board of Selectmen, and that the Town Administrator Act was passed after the creation of the Recreation Commission, which was in 1990. The Town Administrator Act was created in 2006, which was trying to organize the hiring process and set the tone for how the hiring process goes. And it lists who the relevant bodies are in recreation. In accordance with the Town Administrator Act, is that they hire the caretakers. At the time, we didn't have a recreation director when the Town Administrator Act was put together. But the Board of Selectmen is in charge of the administrative staff because it's clerical union employees. So that's the process I followed, and Kate said that was the process we should be following. But she recommended that after looking at the Town Administrator Act closely and looking at some of the positions, she says we may want to consider looking at the Town Administrator Act and maybe adjusting it to, how did she put it? Given the structure of the town has become more sophisticated and many departments have become professionalized and the staff of full-time employees. It makes sense to have a uniform management structure, and this will ensure a fair and equitable compensation and benefits across all departments. So she's recommending, take a look at the Town Administrator Act, and not me, maybe the new guy.
I think that makes sense, because this does come up
It comes up quite a bit, and there's always a question about it, and we may be able to.
It always leaves us feeling a little, insecure about whether we're following protocol, and I, this isn't a condemnation of anybody, or, and I know we're all doing the best we can, but I don't think we want to be in a position where we've empowered a committee to do a job, and they feel like, well, really, like, when the chips are down, we've got no, say. Now, not that they would ultimately be the person, the entity that's hiring or recommending. Maybe they would. I don't know. We'll look at that as we look through this, through the Town Administrator Act, and see if we can shore it up and refine it specifically for positions. But I know it's come up, conservation and, it's important to have the input of that committee, but yet we also have a professional that we've hired as our HR director, if you will, who is doing this. There's several perspectives, right? There's the who's going to fit with the current committee, and who do they like, and who are they going to feel comfortable working with. But then you've got to have somebody who's coming in with a professional background and a jaundiced eye, if you will, and looking through the resume and saying, well, this looks like Swiss cheese, or we probably don't want to have this person, or this person has got the skill sets and I think they can do it. So I think it's got to be some kind of a marriage between those two, and I think you've tried to do that, and I just I thank you for that explanation. I know Mr. Frizzetti, Mr. Smith, not to pick on you guys, and Mrs. Frizzetti, you guys, did you have anything, viewpoints that you wanted to share, or concerns that you wanted to share about this? Are you comfortable with this explanation?
Just one thing here is, at no point did we vote on selecting the chair as a representative. There was not a motion made. It was not explained to us. It was kind of done off to the side, so we had no input at all. And as far as privacy and confidentiality, it didn't seem to matter when we hired a rec director. And we weren't saying, okay, we need to be in on every candidate, but on the final candidates for the rec director, we were there. And we had a special meeting, we were given the resumes, we could have blocked those names out, names and addresses.
So you guys are saying, like, okay, maybe we wouldn't have been, maybe it still would have been Diane and Billy and Mary, but could we have at least weighed in with our opinion? Yeah, okay.
We never got that opportunity, and as far as Billy being involved in it, it's not his position isn't of, well, there isn't a hiring piece to his position. He's on a probationary period as we speak, because we haven't reviewed him.
Right.
And I know it's, well, there's that department head thing there, but, that's not in his job description, so we're kind of confused as to how this all came about.
So it seems like there was a lot of ambiguity across the whole thing, like
Yes,
you,
there was.
okay, all right.
I mean, if it was discussed initially, another one of us could have been on that commission as well, or on that process, but we never got the opportunity.
Okay.
Well, I did mention when I went down to the meeting, when I talked about the position, the process we were going to go through.
Our chair never brought it forth to us, for us to make a motion if we wanted someone else, or to designate her.
Okay.
We never got that opportunity.
And historically, it has always been the chairman. What happened at your level, I don't know, but the process that we have used historically for any of the positions was it was always the chairman of the board. And I don't know whether they voted to send them or not, but we've always had the chairman of the board and the department head. Because the department head's going to be the person working directly with it. The commission will be working with these people.
But that person does not report to Billy. She reports to the TA, correct?
No, she would report to Billy as her department head, and then Billy. Before you didn't have a department head, so the the administrative assistant would be reporting to the town administrator prior to. But now that we have a department head and the director, they should be right.
Language needs to change too.
I think part of the issue is, as Mary alluded to, is this new. I don't think we've synced everything up for the fact we've got this recreation director. Things just don't tick and tie. So, Mrs. Frizzetti, did you have, and then Mr. Young?
I just felt that when they got down to 3 people, that we should have at least had a review of it and had some say in it, not just be told, oh, well, this is the person we chose.
Yeah, so you guys could have at least said to Diane, okay, yeah, we support that decision, that's who, you know, and then she could speak for you guys and kind of, okay. So that may be some feedback that you want to give to Diane about the process. You know, I don't know that, I don't think you guys are suggesting that at the end of the day, you might have even ended up someplace different. I don't know, maybe you would have, but you're not suggesting, but okay. Mr. Young.
The confusion here is the wording of relevant. Who is the relevant body? Okay, when you read the Town Administrator Act, it's pretty clear in the upper part of that.
Right.
Under the personnel.
Yeah.
The larger positions, who the appointing authority is, and down the bottom, it obviously didn't want to list every single clerical.
Exactly.
Every other administrative position. So it just blanket said, and the town administrator shall make recommendations to the relative body. And it also said for those departments and commissions and who are appointed by the Board of Selectmen or under the Board of Selectmen. It doesn't say that they're appointed by the Selectmen, but just define what a relative or body is. It's the body to which that person works for and reports to directly. And in this particular case, it's obviously the Recreation Commission. It's not the Board of Selectmen. That person doesn't report directly to you, or that person doesn't work for you. And there's nothing in the Town Administrator Act that basically says exclusive of union employees. And there is nothing in the contract with the professionals union that says that the Board of Selectmen is the hiring body of all of those people. And so, to me, the relative body is the Recreation Commission. It's pretty clear.
So I hear what you're saying, and I understand that that's your interpretation, and I know we discussed this, and I did tell you we would reach out to legal counsel, which we did. And so I don't have a problem sharing the legal counsel opinion with Mr. Young and really anybody else who would care to see it. Just so you can see, we did reach out, and so that's what we pay Kate and Jay for. So, you know, I think she agreed with the fact that there's sufficient ambiguity that something needs to, we need to clean it up. It needs to be more specific so that we don't keep, because we're like gerbils on a wheel. We just, not just this position, but there's been other positions where it's like deja vu. Haven't we had this conversation before? Why do we keep having this conversation? So I think, you know, in an effort to try to not paint us into a corner, however we structured that Town Administrator Act and the hiring, piece, we just weren't specific enough. And we can be now because we've got a little more meat on the bone. We know how it's structured, so we can do that.
Oh, really? But believe me, if you were dealing with a department that didn't have a relevant body, then I would have no problem with the Board of Selectmen appointing that position. But when you deal with a department that has a relative body to which that person reports to and works under, then it's obvious to me that the relevant body is the commission, not the Board of Selectmen.
Mr. Mitchell?
I would like to make a motion to appoint Dory Jamieson as the Administrative Assistant to Recreation.
Second. And any further discussion? Are you guys comfortable, Mr. Dyer?
I feel comfortable with legal's opinion on it. I mean, we can say, oh, well, hold off, and then we can backtrack if we want, but I don't think that would be fair to any of the applicants to say, hold on, we have to go back up when we have someone that is qualified for this position. We have legal's opinion, that's okay, and I think we should just move forward with it. Just so we're not held up any further.
But also clean it up too, what Mary said.
We need to
and work on that.
Yeah, and that's not easy. I mean, this is a legislative act. We'll have to go to town meeting to get it straightened out.
We got to move
But
forward.
we got to stop this Groundhog Day thing. It's like over and over again.
I'm just going to ask now, is this position, I mean, I just heard from Mr. Smith that Billy is still
On probation.
on probation, so.
up for review.
I mean, is this what happens with this administrative assistant too?
Yes.
So this person's.
We'll have a 6-month probation
We'll have a
period as well.
Yep,
Right.
as it should
And
be.
And it would be, subject, your vote would be subject to a Corey check. I've already done background, spoke to the Abington Police Chief, the Fire Chief, the Highway Director, and the Town Administrator. And they all, said she was great, she would be good for the town, they were sorry what happened. Political issues going on there, which Rick had alluded to. But she would be great for the town, and I
And I think we can all agree that it's critical for that position that we have somebody that's absolutely above reproach, because they're dealing with money and contracts, and I don't think I need to articulate any more than that. Any other questions or discussion? So was it moved and seconded?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to move to the, Mr. Frazzetti.
Just one quick one, and I'm gonna go to pick the minds of West Boston, Nicky. I know we had Emery was an AA, which came from the town hall, which is union. Was Nicole after her?
Mary Q. Katz.
No, these all.
Stacy Reed.
I guess my question, I'm gonna kind of ask you a question as you're going. Were these all from town hall going into the camp, or were some of them outside hires?
Nicole was an outside hire.
Now, how was she hired? Was it through the Recreation Commission, or?
She was hired before I joined the
Yeah,
rec.
she was hired using this process.
Through the Board of
We didn't have a director, obviously, at the time, so we had 2 members of the Recreation Commission part of the process.
I mean, the only problem I have with this is you're picking one person out of 11, and there's only 3 people that have kind of made this decision. And it seems, and I'm not questioning, obviously, you've done.
No, sure you're not.
I would see.
But let me ask you this, guys. What would make you feel better about this process? Knowing that we're legally able to do what we're doing, and what would, I'm asking you guys as members of the commission, what would make you feel more confident and more, and feel, on board with this? Because what I don't want is for this person to be starting, and I'm not suggesting this would be the case with you guys, but for this person to start and feel like, oh boy, I'm not really sure that this commission wanted me to work with them. And I know you guys would still work with her, and you'd still be professional and do what you're supposed to do, but what would be your desired outcome?
Well, I tried to address this back in November, and I didn't get an answer until today about going to legal counsel, so I don't know where they lost in transition. I was told there was a certain way we had to email people, and that's the way I did. I got up until today. I would have liked, not that it's going to change matters now, because you've pretty much locked in on what you're going to do, but it would have been nice to see maybe 5 people come in front of us, we hash it down to 3, and then this person interviews with the Board of Selectmen. If you guys are in charge of who's coming in, have you talked to her, have you talked to her, you know what I mean?
Mr. Dyer.
Mr. Chair, just to level the playing field here, when we hired the new highway director, only 1 person from this committee was in those interviews. And we only saw 1 applicant. So this isn't just a one unique thing that how we hire people here in Hanson.
Well, I think similarly, planning, the planning admin, the conservation admin, you've used the same process.
Right. Matt is right. So when we hired the town administrator, we were all involved because the town administrator works directly for us. Just like you guys were involved when you hired the director over there. Now it's different. Now it's an employee that's working under the director, like Matt said. When Matt, there was only I think Mr. Bloss that sat with him.
Yep.
So there's kind of like a chain of command. But you guys are frustrated over the process, not the person.
No, they're not saying the person,
Right,
they're just.
right, okay, I just wanted to be clear on that.
They just feel like, like you're here on a committee, you're sitting on a committee, you're dedicating
Yeah.
all this time, and you just feel like, wow, okay, I mean, this is a person we're gonna work with, and we just don't feel like we had any input.
Yeah, and I can understand
And yet,
that.
I know that Mary really felt that it was, that she was following the process that's been in place, that's been followed all along, and that she was following protocol, and in fact, Kate said, what you did was right. So we're sort of at a crossroads here where I don't want these guys leaving feeling like, well, you know what, you're just gonna, you're gonna.
No, I think we explained our position. I don't think they're gonna leave like that. Right, Brian?
We'll take it up in the chair.
Which one?
It belongs to us in the chair.
But
Okay.
we did say we're gonna work on it. We know it needs to be fixed, and we're gonna work on it.
So, yeah, and I think maybe have a conversation amongst yourselves with Diane about that process and what that looks like, and Mrs. Frizzetti.
Okay, like Kenny said, that you interviewed the one final person at the end. We didn't interview anybody. We didn't meet the person. We're just being told.
Oh, we didn't interview.
No, we didn't meet, no, we didn't.
Oh,
we
only
didn't-
Wes and Mary interviewed Matt, and we took their recommendation for
Right.
the highway person.
You came here to the meeting, right?
But we didn't interview him. That just, no, the
Yeah.
decision had already been made.
Yeah, we didn't interview him.
Nope. Mary
Mary made
yeah.
that decision along with Mr.
Plus.
Bloss, yeah.
Yeah.
The Town Administrator Act says that the town administrator makes a recommendation to the relevant body, which is what happened here, what happened with Greer was a different story because I was leaving and wasn't going to be working here. If I was staying, I would have made a recommendation for Greer, but I didn't want to leave somebody saying, well, I'm not leaving, you know, I'm going to. That's why the board had three people come before for the executive assistant's position. But all the other positions, it's a recommendation from the town administrator. The board could sit here and say no. As a matter of fact, I've had a board say no.
We did recently have a board do that.
I made a recommendation to the Board of Health, and they said no, they wanted somebody else. So, but I am confident that you will be happy with her. And she will do a good job for you, and I think she's what the commission needs. You guys are relatively new to the position. She's been in this position for a long time, and she's going to be an asset to you and help you through a lot of the things that you sit there saying, should we do this or not? She'll be able to tell you whether you should be doing it or not. She's a certified procurement officer, and she maintained that after she left. I think you'll be happy with her. I'm sorry that the process, we didn't have more people involved. Which, you know, it could have happened. You're a cast of 7 people. 2 people could have come, 3 people could have come to see it, but...
I mean, I'm just going to, what I said before, first of all, she is on a probation period like anyone, so I mean, you do have time to review her and decide if this was the right choice. I mean, certainly, I just defer to Mary. It's like, I trust this is a good decision. I'm also, just as a very brief story, in 1990, when this commission was formed, I was the first chairman, and I just remember fondly, we were hiring the Cranberry Cove positions that year, and we were a 9-member commission then, and it's like, no. I said, we're not going to 9 people. I appointed 2 people and said, you go do the interview process, you do the hiring. So they came back with a slate. They said, this is who we want. One of them was very controversial because they did not hire the Cove director, who was the Cove director the previous year. They said, nope. She failed our process. We're not confident. We're going this one. And they were sure that the commission, the commission were going to go, okay, no, you can't do that. And I said, I just point blank said, we appointed the 2 of you to do this process. The 9 of us are voting on your slate. There's no discussion here. We gave you that authority. It's your authority. So I guess I'm just saying, I mean, times have changed. Now I know, I see exactly where we're all coming from. But in this case, I think you gave Diane the authority. Whether you knew it or not, that just goes with a position of chairman. The chairman made this decision, and you have at least 6 months to see how it works out. That would be my guess. I'm certainly voting for this person who I know nothing about, but I'm certainly going with the recommendation of Diane, Mary, and Billy, and hopefully it works.
And I do thank you for your feedback, and I do thank you for your input, and we are going to work on this. And I'm sorry that the process didn't work the way that you had hoped it would work.
Next time, we'll get this John Stamber on board right
Can we
away.
just, we got to move this along, Mr. Young.
The only amendment you need to make to the Town Administrator Act is define what the relevant body is.
Yes.
And then once you do that, this whole scenario will just go away.
Agreed. Okay, we've got a moved and seconded, and now we're going to move to the vote. Okay, all in favor? Okay.
Hopefully you guys will come back in 6 months and say, thank you for not involving us in the process.
Or maybe just thank you for Dory. I'm not sure they're going to say thank you for not involving us. Okay. I think, let's discuss school assessment matter with town council, but town council isn't here.
He sent us something, though.
So let's, we've got it in a couple of different places, so let's, shall we talk about the school assessment? Let's talk about cost for deregionalizing, school assessment matter, next steps, and all of that. So, I'm not going to ad nauseum repeat all of the various steps that we've been going through, but at the latest on this episode of As the Stomach Turns is that there was a meeting of the regional agreement committee, the new regional agreement committee, was it last week, Mary? Or the week before?
The week before that.
Week before. Thank you, Mr. Hickey. And it was Mr. Hickey and myself. It was Mr. Lyman, Mr. LaMattina, Mr. Kowalski, and Mary, Bob Hayes, and Chris Scriven, and Jeff Simonek, which I'm not sure if Jeff was part of the committee, but he was at the meeting, and George Farrow, the assistant superintendent. The discussion was, how should we move forward with the regional agreement? And it was made abundantly clear at that meeting that Whitman was going to go statutory this year, and that they know that they are able to go statutory, and that regardless of what the agreement says, the way that the composition of the school committee with the 6-4, 6 Whitman, 4 Hanson, with the fact that we've had DESI weigh in and all the various things leading up to this point, that more than likely, regardless of what the school committee voted, ultimately we would end up with statutory, because we'd go through all these super town meetings and all this stuff. So Mr. LaMattina made a point of saying that he would be willing to talk about entering into an agreement. This year would be statutory, and that after this year he would be willing to enter into a discussion about having an agreement that would transition us to statutory, which seemed anticlimactic to me. And however, Mr. Kowalski said that he would be willing to, again, we would start with statutory because we just simply don't have enough time to do anything if people aren't going to negotiate. But that in terms of going forward, that there would be a discussion about potentially opening up that agreement, so it wouldn't be per pupil, which is what we've got now, but it wouldn't be necessarily statutory. It would be something in between, and I don't know what that looks like. I think it's some combination, maybe of factors that we look at and that we can agree on that seems equitable. And so, in the spirit of that, we asked that the school committee disband their regional agreement committee, because if they didn't disband their regional agreement committee, then that meant we were going to continuously have members of the school committee be part of our committee, and we really wouldn't be able to have any dialogue that literally would be, are you guys willing to sit down and talk to us and negotiate an agreement? And what does that look like? And those conversations, the very basic conversations, need to be held in a very candid manner, in not violating open meeting law, so with the right number of people to do that, with the mindset to bring it back to the recommending body. So whatever is discussed in that meeting is absolutely going to be brought back. As the chair, I have a responsibility, and I would do it even if I didn't have a responsibility, because ethically, the rest of this board needs to know what we're talking about. Mr. Dyer is going to be joining me tomorrow with Justin Evans and Randy LaMattina, Frank Lyman and Mary, and we will be meeting at Whitman Town Hall to have a conversation that essentially is going to talk about, are you in fact willing to have that not statutory but not per pupil conversation, and how do we get there? And part of that is the school audit that both towns have agreed to fund. And I do want to clarify that there seemed to be, I think some people were incredibly insulted by the fact that we were asking to have an audit done. But really, this board's perspective is, if we're being asked to write a check, we need to know what that check is for. Pure and simple. It is not a value judgment. It is not an indictment of anybody. We have a fiduciary responsibility to have transparency into the way that the money is being spent. And I guess the way I look at it is, if we weren't in a regional school district, the school would be another department, just like the fire, just like the police, and just like the highway. It would have complete 100% transparency into that. And they'd be sitting at our department head meetings on a weekly basis, and they'd be talking to one another. And, you know, the superintendent, again, this is in a non-regional situation, would be privy to what Chief Thompson and Chief Mix are up against, and what our new highway director is up against. And it would be a very collaborative, holistic view that we would have as department heads. We don't have the benefit of having that with the region, because they're in their own kind of, sacrosanct organization, and that's the way that a regional school district is organized, and that's fine. But it's crippling in a way because we don't have that same transparency that we have when we're talking about these other departments, and where we've had years where Chief Mix has given up something because he knows Chief Thompson needs it, or Highway's given him. We've got that type of collaboration. So we're trying to level that playing field and get that level of information that we've got for the other departments that in town. And as I said, I think that this board sees it as our fiduciary responsibility to do that. If we're going to be asked to spend more money, we certainly need to know, how is the money being spent now, and what are the plans for spending it in the future. And again, not an indictment, not a judgment. We have a job to do, so that's what we're doing. And in keeping with that, one of the questions that keeps coming up is, have we thought about deregionalization? Now, clearly, we've got a gun to our head for the May town meeting, okay? And we really, as agile as we're trying to be, we aren't going to be, and we're not going to be able to pull that miracle off by May, figuring out deregionalization and getting a new agreement and all of that other stuff. But I do think that in parallel to working on a path forward with a new regional agreement, one of the things that I think we want to know, I certainly want to know, and I know I've been asked by a lot of folks in Hanson, is, well, what would deregionalization look like? Is it to our benefit? Would it be to our detriment? What would the cost be? What would the process be? I don't have any of those answers right now, but we are hoping that as part of this audit, we're going to fold in and get some of that information. And also, they've just recently hired a new business administrator for the schools, and it happens to be the gentleman who was very involved with the deregionalization of Silver Lake and Pembroke. So I think there's some expertise there to draw upon. My sense is that deregionalization is probably not a viable, and certainly not a short-term viable solution right now, but it's something that everybody deserves us to look into, so we will look into it. So I think that kind of knocks off 3 or 4 of the various things, but that's where we're at tomorrow. So Matt and others, we will talk. I will bring it back to our next meeting, tell you guys what that's looking like. I feel optimistic that at least we're keeping a dialogue going, and we're having that conversation with Whitman and Hanson. And I think one of the things that I like about it is that historically the two towns have really been very siloed in the way that we've been handling and approaching the school district issues. And I think that this is the beginning of the end of that approach, and you're going to see, regardless of what happens, whether we're able to come up with something at the regional agreement, the audit at the very least is going to help us be on the same page with Whitman. We'll have the insight into the financials, and then we'll have conversations about what that looks like. So, Mr. Dyer, did you have something you wanted to add?
One quick thing about the audits. This isn't a unique where we're just auditing something. Every year we choose a department to audit.
Yes.
So it's not just we're upset with this, so we're auditing this. This is just regular business.
It is regular business, but I can't deny that the impetus was because we need more insight. I mean, I feel unapologetic about saying that because we're being asked to fund a budget that's enormous. It's the largest piece of our budget. We need to know what's going on there. And again, I'm not suggesting anything other than we have a right to know, we need to know, and we're going to know. So that's where we're at there.
How long will it take the audit to come back?
Todd expects probably about a month. We're still working on that. We'll talk to Frank tomorrow. I've got some feelers out. I spoke to a gentleman from the Massachusetts Associations of Superintendents, and he had suggested a firm, and to maybe start with MARS, the Massachusetts Association of Regional Schools. And he said, they could probably do a report. I said, well, actually, we have a report, and we want something a little more in depth than that. And I asked him how we could send out the RFP. He said, it doesn't have to be anything fancy, that you're just looking for a forensic audit on the expenditures and expenses for all the programs and the free cash, and it's as simple as that. So I didn't want to be stepping on anybody's toes and go forward with anybody until I talked to Frank. He hadn't done any research on it, but Todd's been a big help getting me some names that we can contact.
I think, I'm very hopeful about what John Stanbrook, our new town administrator, can bring to this process as well. He's been a finance director, and I think that's going to serve us in good stead. I'm very excited about that prospect. I also want to mention one of the other things that we've asked Jay and Kate to do, and I know George Farrow had mentioned that he had access to it, but I think we need to follow up with him, Mary, is I would like to get some examples of other districts that have used some other hybrid methodology. I believe Jay sent us.
I was going to say, Jay sent us one from Dennis Yarmouth.
Dennis Yarmouth.
Yep.
But I'd like to see some others. If George Farrow had mentioned at that meeting, the regional agreement meeting a couple weeks ago, that he knew of several other towns that had, regional districts that had those types of agreements. So I'd like to see what those look like so that we can maybe take the best of them, or maybe not take anything if we don't agree, but at least it would give us a starting place. Just one moment, Mr. Young. Did anybody have any?
I'm good.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Young.
When I was watching the school committee meeting the other night, I was blown away by the fact, and you know this, anybody that is familiar with the budgeting process and the assessment process knows that the assessment is one of the last things that they do. And that the budget process takes most of the time when they go through the budget. And as you know, no matter which method they use, whether it's the percentage of pupils method or the statutory method, it's not going to affect the bottom line of the budget. The assessment method, the assessment only affects which pants pockets it comes out of, into Hanson, how it's divided. So I was blown away by the fact that they took that vote the other night, to determine what the methodology of the assessment is going to be. That shouldn't have taken place till January, February, okay? And we all know which way that's going to go anyway. But what I was blown away by was the fact that it takes a 2/3 vote of the school committee to certify the budget. It takes a 2/3 vote of the school committee to certify the assessment. But it only takes a majority vote for the school committee to take a vote and deviate from the process that's listed in the agreement between the two towns.
Well, that was, yeah.
And if you look at chapter 71, and even if you look at the regs for the DESC, it says that the budget takes a 2/3 vote of the school committee, okay? It says nothing in there that they're allowed, that they take a separate majority vote by only the majority, and we all know how that went. It went, all 6 members at Whitman voted for the statutory method, and all 4 members from Hanson voted against the statutory
Yep.
method. And it just didn't make any sense to me that it would only take a majority vote. And I'm wondering where the superintendent got his opinion that it only takes a majority vote.
I could not even speculate. But Mr. Sullivan, I see you here, and one of the things that, and I'm glad that you're here, and I thank you for sitting through this extremely painful meeting, but I'm wondering, at what point can we loop you in and the FinCom? You know, obviously, I didn't think it was, and I don't think the Whitman guys did either, think that it was particularly productive. You know, we're trying to be limber here. We're trying not to like kill an ant with a can and have 15 people and never make a decision. We're trying to get some basic stuff out, and then we'll bring it back to the relevant bodies. And I'm thinking, you know, if we're able to get some type of an agreement in principle, at that point would circle back and loop you in. Does that seem okay, or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Ultimately, FinCom has to play the hand we're dealt, based on what the school provides and the budget. I mean, I think it's a little bit discouraging to me that they've shown such a high level of increase already right off the bat in December. We're talking about, I mean, take away the required,
Yeah.
even the restore. I mean, we're talking $2.5 million in recommendations that I find it a little disheartening that obviously we know where we stand. We know that there's a very likely potential we're going to have to deal with a much larger increase in the previous years, and the superintendent still recommends an even higher increase when I feel like we could, you know, we're running out of time before May. If we have to ease into this statutory method, why not make it as easy as possible? I mean, we're throwing things like full day kindergarten right on top. You know, is this the best time to do that, to offset? You know, if they eased into it a little bit more, maybe we could make this work and we could sort of move it forward. But I feel like, you know, we're hammering it down. The superintendent has decided that he's got his opportunity to sort of hammer on all these increases, and it's going to make it even more difficult. And I think it's going to make some of the citizens of this town dig in and say, no, absolutely not, we'll fight this all the way to
And I've had conversations like that with the chair of the school committee, and I've said, you do understand, this is Hanson, right? The likelihood of them getting any increase if we move to statutory is nil. And not just for this year. I mean, we could be looking at people digging in and saying, hell no, we won't go for quite a few years.
Right, absolutely.
And, you know, and so I have gotten quite a bit of very strong and loud feedback about the fact that not only are we looking at the struggle of how this assessment is going to play out, but that now we're tacking on pretty large increase on top of that.
I'm happy to be part of the process whenever, at your pleasure, whenever you decide.
Okay.
I think you're right. I don't think it's been necessary this early in the process. I was hopeful that maybe we'd get a little bit more favorable result from our friends across the border, but
you know, yeah, they're doing what they think they need to do. So, Mr. Young, I am going to try to wrap it up.
Just to expand on his raw numbers, because I watched the meeting, his preliminary numbers, they were strictly preliminary, and he emphasized that. Current budget is $52 million, the proposed budget is $57 million, $5 million increase, 9.6%. Right.
yeah, there's Greer passed out, I think, a packet that actually details it. There's two.
Tony, you get the details of it.
Yeah, I think it was, I don't know if it was attached to the agenda or from the superintendent, but it's a
Oh, great.
2.5 and recommended, non-required,
Yeah, that's-
non-restored.
Yeah, that's only non-required stuff.
Right, exactly.
Yep. So more to come, unfortunately, on that. But we will do the best we can and try to effectuate the most positive outcome we can, given the current circumstances. And we will report back. Okay? Any other comments or questions on that? Yes, if you could just state your name and...
Oh, Jane Durante, Happy Circle. I'm blown away because you're all gonna say, well, they have 6 members, we have 4 members. The whole point of everything here is they're in financial disarray over there, and we don't have the money here to bail out them. So, no matter, I mean, God bless you for all trying, but the way they come across at any time I've been there that they spoke, it's, this is it and that's it. So, I'm really kind of discouraged.
Yeah, I don't blame you, and I have to talk myself off the ledge quite often about this. But the way I look at it, frankly, Mrs. Durante, is we have nothing to lose by sitting down at the table and everything to lose by not sitting down at the table.
Absolutely.
So we will be sitting down at the table.
Absolutely. And I wish you all the luck, and I'll say a prayer for you.
We'll take anything we can. Yes, ma'am, and then I'm going to wrap it up.
Yes, one brief question. My name's Catherine Copley. I know the regional agreement has not been updated as it should be. And so going forward, the school committee chairman had said we have no choice. It has to be 6-4 based on student population. I'm hoping that that agreement, that some legal advice can be in there. If we're going to put such a hefty bill here to cover this expense, that we have an equal amount of votes to determine what's going to happen going forward. So as that
Yes.
agreement goes forward, I hope that can be changed.
That is something we are looking into. And I also heard the chair of the school committee say that, and I think he said that it was required by law, but I'm a trust but verify type of gal. So we are having our legal counsel look into that, and that is a question that we're taking under advisement.
Great,
yep.
Thank you.
Okay. So I don't know how to transition to the next thing. Let's see.
Want to jump back up the top of the agenda and
That
work our way
sounds
down?
great. Let's do annual license renewal. And thank you all. Thank you.
I move to approve the listed license as printed.
Very nicely done.
I'm sorry.
Very nicely done.
It's printed in the agenda, is that?
Now, Mary, you know the questions I'm going to ask.
We have sent letters to all the department heads, made sure everybody was up to date. Everyone has come through to pay their bills. If they have not paid, they're not on the list, correct? We took everybody off.
That's correct. Okay, so nobody has got any enforcement issues against them or back taxes or anything of that sort?
Right.
Okay. Are you...
Jim, did you second?
Are you making, I can't tell if you're objecting to that statement. Oh, okay.
I think Jim seconded that, right?
Jim seconded?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, great. That was pretty easy. Accept November donations.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Great. No knock policy. Talk to me, Mary.
Actually, I spoke to the chief. I knew this had come up before, and I didn't recall what the outcome was.
Can you just explain what that is for people that
The no-knock policy is for the solicitors who go to people's doors. A resident had asked a while ago, apparently, about having a no-knock policy where a list is drafted up and then disseminated. And the chief had pointed out there's some problems with that, is maintaining the list, and people move or people change, and how are we going to be able to monitor that? solicitors are supposed to go to the police station to register, to say that they're going to be soliciting, I don't know, solar power or magazines or whatever. But the religious organizations are not required to do that. That's freedom of speech, and they can, go to the doors as they wish. So the chief's recommendation to Mike McHugh was that recommend, if you don't want people soliciting at your door, put up a no trespass sign. Okay. No solicitation sign. Because if we have this list and we have this policy and they show up, we have no teeth in it to say you can't do that. But if you have a no trespassing sign, they can enforce that.
Okay, and this came up, just so you guys know, as a lot of these things do. I was at Thomas Mill, and a citizen came up and said that he was concerned about his elderly aunt, who lived in an area where this seemed to happen, and he was panicked that if it wasn't somebody appropriate, she could be in a really unfortunate circumstance. So I asked Mary, given that, could you circle back with the gentleman in the question?
Definitely.
And make sure that you let him know what we, Chief Mick's
his recommendation.
Yeah.
And after the chief and I talked about it, I said, okay, I can handle it. He wasn't able to come tonight, and I said, don't make an effort, kill yourself to get here. But I said, I can handle this. But he emailed me later and said, and also the 2020 census is about to kick off, and you're going to have people going to doors. So that would be very difficult. But if you don't want anybody coming to your door, a no trespassing sign is the best way to go. And if there's somebody in your property, even if you don't have a no trespassing sign, call the police. Mm-hmm. That would be the easiest way to handle that.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. Any questions? Okay, great. And I thought it'd be a nice way, and I will whip right through. Oh, wait a minute. Let me, did anybody want to make a motion to approve the request to use McQuon and Botieri parking lots for the Polar Plunge on January 26th? So Melissa's not able to be with us. Second it? Okay. All in favor? Fabulous. Also, Mary, approve and execute town administrator and highway contracts. Did you want to?
Yes, that would be great. As I had told the board in executive session, we've come to agreements with both the, right? We came to agreement, right? Okay. Just double back with him. You got the draft with both the town administrator John Stanbrook and the highway director Matt Cahill, and the provisions of the contract is $140,000 for the town administrator, $90,000 for the highway director. Those are the biggest benefits, and vacation time and sick time. The Mr. Cahill is willing to start on January 2nd, and Mr. Stanbrook will start on January 6th.
And I think it should be pointed out that we are moving in the direction of no longer having the unlimited sick time, which has historically been something that we've had for employees, and this board has decided that that is not something that's sustainable. But in the interest of that, one of the things that we thought we could do to compensate, if you will, and I don't mean financially, is to offer to pick up portions of long-term disability, so that we're not putting an employee in a position where if they're ill, they're, going to meet an, uncertain financial ruin. And so we're going to be, I think, putting the town in a much better position as a result of that.
Right.
Well, we are thrilled that we've got both of these gentlemen starting with the new year. And I do plan on saying more about this later, but I know that I speak for the board in saying that we really appreciate you sticking with us, Mary, you supporting us, you getting us through this process, and you getting us to the point where we've got a new town administrator and we've got the lovely and talented Greer Getson. We're going to be in a good position moving forward. So
I'm feeling really good about retirement. Not just because of retirement, but we've got great people in place here. I am very happy with how things have fallen into place. I'm looking forward to John starting. Matt has been great, and kudos to Kurt. Kurt has just worked out wonderful for us, and he's been an asset for the short time he was here. And every time he comes in the office, he says he's had a blast. So.
It does look like he's having fun.
Yes. So that was, everything worked great. So if we can get a motion to approve the contracts for.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Are we voting both together or one at a time?
We'll separate them.
Separate.
Yep.
Okay, which one are we voting on?
Town
right now?
administrator?
Town administrator?
Town administrator.
Jim Hickey? Second?
Second.
All in favor? And I'll entertain a motion to approve the highway director contract.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Oh, hold on. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to say, last meeting we said we're going to do an attaboy at every meeting. I just want to throw out an attaboy to Matt Cahill, just because he's been donating a lot of time already. He was here for the Christmas celebration. He's sat through this meeting. He's gone to highway meetings.
Yeah.
You know, he's already really invested in the community, which is.
I don't like the way you said he sat through this meeting.
I know.
And it's not an attaboy. It's a shout out. I thought it was shout out. You can't change it.
No,
It's
you're
either
right.
shout out or attaboy.
Thank you for being sensitive to genders in that. It's a shout out. Thank you.
Jim has always been very sensitive to genders.
Yeah.
Always.
Okay, wow, we're just deteriorating. Okay, that's great. And yeah, thanks. I agree, Matt. You've already been stepping up and winning all kinds of friends and influencing people all over the place. So with that, I thought it would be a good idea to recap our 2019 accomplishments. And I know there was a list in here somewhere. Thank you. And so we've had quite the year. And when we think about some of the bad things that have happened this year, I like to think of some of the good things that have happened. And leading that list would be that we hired our new town administrator, John Stanbrook, who will start January 6th. And we've also hired our new executive assistant, Greer. We've hired our new highway director, who's starting January 2nd. We acquired the sleeper property, which is in the rear of the Smitty's Bog, abutting Camp Kiwanee. We declared Main Street an economic target area, and we worked with the owners on getting the building into compliance, and we've begun discussions with MassWorks regarding the grants that are available to assist in mixed-use build-out of that building. And also recently, the town planner completed a survey regarding what they would like to see happen on Main Street. If you haven't already looked at that, it's on the town website, and I believe it was also in the Express a couple of times. We also are issuing an RFI for the reuse for McQuon, with an eye towards that being used for affordable senior housing, and hopefully using that to put a stop to 40B requests, because we'll be meeting the threshold that we need to meet. And we got JJ's cleaned up at no additional cost to taxpayers, despite naysayers. And I say we in the royal sense, but Matt and Wes implemented a plastic bag ban.
And polystyrene.
And polystyrene, thank you, sorry. We're in the midst of planning a 200th anniversary celebration, which many of us here have been working on. We voted to implement regional dispatch, which will provide a state-of-the-art dispatch at the same or lower cost to taxpayers. We've hired a new conservation agent. We've hired a new health agent. We've hired a new recreation director. We've hired a new conservation admin. We had a successful Hanson Day in cooperation with the Hanson Business Network, and we joined in DEP conversations about the fireworks site and held an information forum for our residents. In addition, we're now part of those ongoing conversations so that we know what's happening in Hanover and we're not just considered a nuisance and not part of the conversation. And those were just the things that came to my mind. I'm sure you guys have got things that that you feel good about, but I really want to say that I thoroughly enjoy working with each and every one of you guys and with Mary and Greer, and we're very fortunate to be supported by fabulous staff of people at Town Hall, volunteers on all of the committees. We're lucky. We've got a great town, and it shows time and time again. It's not always, fresh, it's not always, roses, but by and large, we've gotten a lot done through some pretty tough times, and I appreciate all of you guys and your level of commitment. So I don't know if anybody else had anything they wanted to say or add to that list. Okay. And Mary, acknowledgements, I believe that was the shout out. Is that what you're talking about? Okay.
It just looked a little more professional than shout out.
Okay, it does, but it threw me for a loop. I wasn't sure what it meant. Town administrators report.
Okay, personnel, recommendation for recreation admin. The planning administrative assistant, we received 2 applications. The town planner and the planning board chairman. Don Ellis and I did interviews. What's today? Yesterday?
Yes.
Yesterday. Wow. Yesterday. So I'll be making a recommendation on January 7th. Capital improvement and budget. So Todd and I reviewed the capital plans with some of the department heads, and we're working on some revisions for the priorities in order to accommodate funding for the coming year. So we're still working on that process, but we're just kind of, sitting down with the department heads, getting their feedback as we go through the process with the capital improvement committee. So those changes will be updated, and then they'll meet with the capital improvement committee. So we're kind of folding that whole idea together. An ADA grant. Thanks to the diligence of our town planner, Deb Petty, the town's been provisionally approved for an ADA improvement grant in the amount of $38,775. And the funds will be used to conduct an assessment of the town. The last time one was done was 1996, so some of the buildings don't exist. And once that is completed, those will be able to apply for more funds to do the improvements. Meetings, fireworks meeting. In addition to the seminar, the presentations they did, they hold a monthly meeting. It's a conference call, and it's just certain people attending. So this month was the first time Hanson participated, and the Health Agent Guillermo attended with me. And it's a call from the DEP, the Attorney General's Office, Department of Public Health, and representatives from Hanover. And it went well. We got some information. Some of the stuff is confidential because they're talking about security and things like that, which is fine. We're good with that. I will forward John Stanbrook's information off to all the relevant parties, so he will be included in the next call, which will be at the end of the month. But as part of Hanson's forum that we held, some residents on Christopher Lane were concerned about their well water because they use it for irrigation, not necessarily drinking water. And DEP got right on that. They contacted them. Well, they've actually completed the testing, got the sampling, and they sent letters out today that there was no volatile organic compounds in any of the samples, but they did detect minor concentrations of metal barium, which is 22 micrograms per liter. And DEP notes that it is well below the groundwater category GW-1 standards of 2,000 micrograms per liter. But they do have that in their letters, and those letters have gone out to the 3 residents that they tested. So I thought that was good. They've been very responsive.
Very accommodating. Yes. I mean, they weren't really required to test private wells, but they stepped up, and I appreciate that.
Laura, Matt, and I attended a meeting with the library and the COA director, along with one of the trustees and one of the council members, and discussions regarding space at that facility and relocation and the library building project, which is 3 to 5 years out. It was a good conversation. We all got actually to the table and tossed everything around. We don't see anything happening in the very near future, but if things move forward with McQuon School and we can keep the front portion, the seniors could move over there, the library may be able to stay where it is with some additions to that building. They need approximately 16,000 square feet. Currently the entire building is 11,000, so they're getting kind of pinched there, but that's a work in progress. Miscellaneous. Last week, I held my last department head meeting. Best department head meeting ever. Everybody showed, but I had it at a restaurant, which I should have thought of before, So it was well received. It was a lot of fun. It was good to see everybody. So that was great, and I'm sure everybody will be just as receptive to John when he arrives.
And Mary treated us all.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That
was
did
fun.
seem a little warped, by the way.
No, it was my pleasure. Really.
Okay.
You just haven't got the bill yet, Greer.
The Sargent property, which was Article 5 in the October special town meeting, I have both of the deed releases, so I'm working with Kate to get that wrapped up. That was one of the things I really wanted to check off my list before I left. The cell tower was the other, so I may just hang around so you can see that that's approved and it actually happens. I got a call from Ernie Sandland last week or the week before about the elevator at the at the Indian Head School, that it is under a 90-day notice due to failure because of the door resistor, I believe that was called, but the repairs are going to be $6,200, and because it's over $5,000, it's a town's responsibility, but it's something they have to fix now. They can't wait to town meeting, so I gave them the authorization to get the work done, and we'll put an article on the town meeting, the May special town meeting, to reimburse the district on that. Town reports are due January 10th, and
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mary. So you're going to be here in May?
I think that's what she said, Jim.
That's what I heard.
I'll come around in May, how's that? The annual town reports are due January 10th, and this goes to all the boards, the commissions, the committees. Forward your reports to Greer at ggETZEN@hanson-ma.gov. So if you are on a committee, you need that, and I thought Laura's list of accomplishments was a great start for her report, so we're heading in the right direction. Holiday schedule, I think do we say all town offices will be closing at noon on Christmas Eve? That includes the town hall, the library, the senior center, and the transfer station. And the town hall will be closing at 5 o'clock on New Year's Eve because several people are taking time off, so they're taking personal vacation time for the 3 hours until 8 o'clock. Because apparently people have something to do on New Year's Eve. And I just want to say that the tree lighting was great. We had a great reception. It was a beautiful night. Thank you to the highway department, the police department, the fire department, the staff at town hall, and everybody for coming out, because it's a lot of fun and people really seem to enjoy it.
You guys outdid yourself this year. I mean, every year that bar just keeps getting set higher and higher and higher. I don't know what they're going to do next year to outdo that, but good job. Yeah, and I think people really appreciate it.
They do.
It's just like wholesome, no cost, everybody get together, kind of, it's good.
So shout out to the restaurants and everybody who participated, the vendors who came and shared their wares with everyone for free. It was fun.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's it.
Fantastic. And are we ready to approve the minutes of
I move to approve November 16, 2019 regular session, November 19th, 2019 executive session and withhold those, and December 3rd, 2019 regular session minutes.
We'll do December 3rd separate because I wasn't here.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine. So you're just going to redo your motion to be the 16th and the 19th, but not release the 19th?
Correct.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, and Mr. Dyer?
And then I also move to approve minutes for December 3rd, 2019 regular session minutes.
Second?
Second.
All approved? All in favor? I'm sorry, I'm getting punch drunk. Okay. Okay, great, thanks. Moving right along, 200th Anniversary Committee. Wow, so much to report on there, but so little time.
Yeah, because I need a little time.
Oh, okay, well, hold that thought.
Skip your
Getting all
committee.
excited. No, we've got stuff going on in the 200th. Roaring 20s party, February 22nd at Lakeside Villa. Tickets are available on Eventbrite. They're $40 each. It's going to be a fantastic time. If you don't want to dress up in 20s vintage clothing, aka like my husband, then you can just come in a suit. You do not need to dress in 20s vintage clothing. Also, Under the guidance of the lovely and talented Audrey Flanagan, we've been holding a series of pop-up stores at the Thomas Mill, which have been wildly successful and people are very excited about, because you can get your Hanson 200 swag. And it's very timely because Christmas is right around the corner, and who in Hanson doesn't want to be wearing Hanson 200th anniversary swag? So in keeping with that, Audrey has succumbed to severe pressure to have yet another pop-up store, and this is our last pop-up store of the season, for real. And it will be this Saturday, 9 to 12, at the Thomas Mill. You can buy calendars for $5, sweatshirts, ornaments, and all kinds of other swag, all at very reasonable prices, and all of which the profits benefit the 200th anniversary events. And that is all that I have on that. Mr. Dyer, don't feel pressured by the fact that Kenny has just passed out all kinds of handouts. And
hurry up, Matt.
let us know about your final Plymouth County Hospital Reviews Committee.
We're making some leeway, and we're hopefully going to have some final plans to present to the Board of Selectmen come January, just as some major steps, and then further to continue.
Maytown meeting?
Maytown meeting, we will have some articles, hopefully, for the town.
All right. McQuon School Reuse, no update there, just the RFIs is...
Just waiting for that.
Yeah,
We're just waiting for them to
that's
plug
it.
the dates in and send it out.
And with that, and don't feel any pressure, because you are the
Is it my
last
turn?
item on the agenda at 9:20. Yes, Mr.
I'll keep it brief, don't worry.
I know you will. Just one of each, or what?
No, how many did I give you?
Oh, this is like a whole...
Yeah, it is a whole thing.
Okay.
Jim, and then this one for
Yep.
yourself. So Highway, we met last night, and it was really nice because Kurt came, our interim highway director, and also Matt came, our new highway director that's
Is
starting.
Matt really there? Can I just ask?
Next year.
Are we actually talking to anybody?
No, he was
there.
Yeah, he
and then
was
he just
there.
left.
We had an engineer from Weston and Sampson. We also had an architect from Weston and Sampson. So this is, and I'll go through this quickly, this is a preliminary, this is not the final plan, so I don't want to let this, really out yet. But the first page just gives you a scope of the building. So you have building 1 on your right-hand side. That's the main building that we're going to have all the garages and also the employees, the locker rooms and all that. But this is just a scope of the parking lot. So if you come down, this is Hawks Ave to your right-hand side, and you'll come down, this is the cell phone antenna over here. If you were gonna be delivering salt, let's just say, you come down on the back, all the way here and back in, and that's where the salt shed's gonna be. The salt shed is gonna be 4 times the size of the salt shed now. They can almost fill that up and have enough salt to get them
And now I know
through the
people are
season.
going to ask, oh, it's right near wetlands, blah, 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 but there's a special floor in this, right?
Yes, absolutely.
It's like not permeable and
Yep,
it makes...
and then even the
yeah.
outside is special. I'm not
Yeah.
sure of the formula, but I can get that information. So you got building 1, and then building 2 will be this will just be they call it a cold storage. There will be heat in there, but it's only gonna heat up to 50. We'll have a garage door, overhead door on the right-hand side. Also, we have to have fire suppressant in there because we'll be storing vehicles in there. So it's gotta have water to it, but that's it. There's nothing else. That building's gonna be just pretty much airtight, and the whole inside will be, empty other than vehicles and plows and stuff like that, but we're not spending on a whole lot of.
So it's basically like a shed, basically, but you've got to have...
a big shed.
Yeah.
And then fuel, you'll see the fuel iron behind there, so that's the fuel from the existing highway. We're gonna move that, because the fuel tanks are over there, there's a diesel tank and there's a gas tank. They're both good for another, I wanna say 15 or 20 years, so we can save money by moving that. All right, the second one we can skip. The only difference here is the parking lot, how many spaces and stuff. So page 2 you can skip. Page 3 is, all right, now page 3 is building number 1. Okay, so you'll come from the bottom right-hand side, that where it says vestibule. So that's where you'll actually come into the highway department. Jameson will be behind those. I know they look like windows, but behind those where it says admin, I want to say it's too small for me to read.
Yep.
So when you come in, there'll be a window there. So Jamison will be behind there,
Kind of like the police station?
kind of like the police station, for
Okay.
security purposes. You know, in the middle of the night, if they're plowing or something, and someone comes in at 3 in the morning, you know, you just don't know. There'll be a public toilet, public facilities right there. Once you walk through there, the first office would be Matt's office, the bigger office. The second office would be Dave's. And then above there, you've got the men's locker room. That's gonna fit, that'll have 12 lockers. We're gonna currently increase that for down the road, in case we do get more employees, or, I don't wanna say this out loud, but if we have a merge with a DPW or something, we wanna make sure we're gonna have enough space, you know, to have 2 departments. To the right-hand side of the men's locker room, you'll see the women's locker room. That's probably only gonna have probably 3 or 4 lockers in there to start, but that'll be a full facility. Just all, these are all, obviously all ADA inside. They'll have showers. Above that will be a laundry room and then a break room. The break room where you see 118, we're gonna take that and remove that door and make that like a 8-foot wide, just so it's kind of wide open. That's kind of room for the guys for lunch, or if the guys are plowing and they have subcontractors, just a way to go in there and take 5 or 10 minutes off, so if you needed to get out real quickly. So we're gonna do that. The training room, now I thought initially the training room was a little bit big. I mean, how much training do we do in there? But after talking with Matt and after talking with Kurt and talking with Dave Hanlon, I guess the training, it's kind of like the police station. We have a beautiful conference room in the police station, but what happens is they'll take Chief Mix can have like 10 departments come in and do training on a certain item.
Yeah.
A lot of times our guys won't have to pay for that training because we're using our facility.
Yeah.
So we'll pull in from other. So that's kind of what they're thinking, the same thing in here as far as training, where you can pull in other guys from highway departments or DPWs to come in, use our place for the training, and they say, hey, our 4 guys, maybe we don't pay.
Now, will that
You know?
be open to the public to use?
No.
Okay, so this is only for the department?
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about that later, but all this is gonna be all secured.
I just didn't know if it was gonna be like the police station, you can sign up for like a, you know, to use.
Yeah, I mean, that's something down the road
Yeah.
that we can definitely talk about, you know? Like, even the subcontractors, when they come in for plowing, the town has 24, 25 subcontractors. They're not gonna even get into any of this out here. They'll be in the, you know, in the garage portion, you know? And actually, it's funny you say that, because our next meeting on January, John starts the 6th, so our next meeting's the 9th. It's a meeting about doors. We have to go through every single entry door, every garage door, see which ones we want secured, what the doors are going to, what they're gonna mean. We literally having a meeting about doors. That's just, all right, so enough on that. Real quick, over here you'll see the bays. The bays will start here. This will be receiving over here, number 123, and then these will be the bays, which will be the shop area for the trucks.
And again, this is built for current needs, but projecting out what we may need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, absolutely. And I'll know too by February, I'll be able to tell you exactly how many trucks, where they're going, and like we'll detail it right down there.
It's really starting to
The very end bay, you'll see it's a maintenance bay. That's the one that's second, it's this bay that's second to the right.
Yeah.
So that bay will be where they'll have a lift on there. They'll have to be able to change oil on trucks and stuff, be able to drive through. Then over there's a parts area, hose shop, toilet area, and then there's a small office for the mechanic, which has to look up
Now, I know they're
different
doing the police vehicles on a rotating basis and going in there.
Yes, so the highway mechanic services all the police
So where will those
cruisers.
guys go, like in that?
So when he's gonna work on anything in here, it's gonna be that bay right there.
Okay.
And there's only one mechanic, so we can only work on one car at one time. So, yeah, I don't wanna bore you guys. The last page is, that's just there's gonna be a mezzanine that's gonna be above. So this just kinda shows the mezzanine, which they'll be able to store a lot of stuff. Like, they do, like, they make their own signs. I don't know if you guys knew that. The street signs.
I didn't know they made their own signs.
They
I
make
thought
their
prisoners
signs.
made all
They
of our
put
signs.
they put signs up. Hanover does too. So there's a bunch of stuff that they have to store that you know, that mezzanine will be able to take over there. Toilet paper and paper towels, and you'd be surprised when we go through the inventory list and how much stuff you gotta put in that you need to run a facility. So I'll keep you guys updated, but I just wanted to make sure that you knew that I wasn't goofing off, that we've been out working hard at this. And I'll take any questions except for one, the price. I don't know the price.
Well, Mr. Dyer.
Good.
So energy efficiency and sustainability, what are we talking about for this building? Are we putting solar on there, hot water solar?
So I can't answer that question 100%, but however, the engineer is gonna be reaching out to Mr. Armstrong.
Okay, great.
To tie him in, but there's a certain requirement of green that has to go in.
Right.
But there's not gonna, we haven't talked about any solar panels or anything.
Yeah, I just was thinking for the roof, you know, I mean, I don't know if it's gonna be a pitched roof, flat roof, or whatever, but that might be a perfect spot for it, or.
I mean, the building,
solar
we are
arrays.
gonna do some things to the existing building. I mean, the building is pretty tight and secure. They've had a few, like there was an HVAC guy that was down here last week. The building for the age is really secure. So they're gonna have to paint. There's a couple things they're gonna have to do. I don't believe they're gonna have to do a roof. We sent a drone over to the top of the building. I had a friend with a drone. It was kind of fun, and we took pictures and got video of the top of the buildings and sent them to Weston and Sampson for their review for the top of the building.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
And then just
but I will find out about that.
But what were you saying?
Big south-facing expanse.
No, but you said on the roof, but then what did you say, like as a field?
Yeah, so one thing that we hope that we can do is maybe even standalone solar.
Yes.
So out in the field that, you know, hopefully one day we
That's
can
probably
track.
more of an option.
Well, but we had discussed a while back, in fact, right after I think the town voted for this, is there a way for us to look, and I know that this isn't these plans, but to try to get some money off of that property by putting a solar field out there where we could get, you know.
Yeah, I know before this property, before the town took it, there was some talks of people calling, looking for solar, you know.
So will you keep that in your head?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could put, like Matt said, if there's a place where you could put solar panels and generate, certainly be able to cool the building and energize the building and save money and.
I mean, at least for the building, but I'm thinking even bigger than that if we've got room.
If you have the room.
To the meter,
Yeah, Matt, I think you had
And then my
something
last thing is just, from the Energy Committee, there's a bylaw in town that I always like to remind people that we have to purchase Energy Star rated appliances and equipment.
Okay.
A lot of people forget that, but it's just something that I like to remind people of.
That's good.
That's an excellent point, Matt, and I'm wondering if
I did not know that.
If it might behoove the Energy Committee to send a reminder memo out to all of the department heads, just because, you know, you never know what people, if Jerry or police chief might be buying, that they're not thinking about that.
Yeah, I did not know that.
Just a thought, you know, just to refresh people. All right, well, that's
it.
excellent.
Any more
And so
questions?
you know, I'm gonna ask, are we looking at something on May town warrant, or what's the deal?
Well, you know, there's only that one thing that's prevented me not to push it through for May, and I think we all know the answer to that.
Well,
That's kind of changed my ball game a little bit. I mean, I started this process. I've been on the board 5 years now. I started literally in the highway committee 5 years ago, and then, you know, just working on this. So, you know, right now, as of today, we're gonna push it for May, but obviously, you know, there's other things.
Will let us know.
There's other things that, you know, come up that, you know, I'm not gonna go up against something that I'm gonna lose, and I've been waiting 5 years, you know, if I gotta wait another 6 months or a year, is it?
You are dedicated to the cause, we can say that about you.
I told them I want a piece of my name in the corner of the back of the building.
At the very least, maybe one of the break rooms can be named.
Yeah, there you
Ken
go.
Mitchell break room. Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Excuse me.
Oh,
Second.
sorry.
Waited all night for this, which I don't mind staying up, because I'm not on the agenda. Waste Zero, you approved the minutes for December 3rd. Did we get that straightened out? Waste Zero from the last meeting?
Actually, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I did want you to, I know you gave me an update, but can you give everybody an update?
We are working on that. Council's putting together a contract, you know, to get us through to January. So we are still working on it.
But I think there seemed to be some concerns that people felt like maybe the transfer station was going to close and all of that. Since the last time we met, where he agreed to extend for 2 weeks and then get back to us on to whom he may have been directing, or his compatriot was directing emails. I think we've now got our legal counsel talking to their legal counsel and interpreting what the language meant and what the terms will be, and we're still in negotiations. But we don't feel that any shutdown is imminent at this point.
No, we expect them to continue to pick up the recycling through January. I can't remember what the date was.
Yes, it was the end of January,
But we're still
I
working
think,
on
yeah.
getting that implemented.
Yep.
And as far as what you just said about the transfer station possibly closing, did you have a date, or is that something, or?
No, I was saying that was a rumor that
Yeah,
people had
that's not
started.
true.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, and it's not on the agenda, so I don't want to really discuss it. I would request to sit with 2 selectmen, 2 things: finances and security in a transfer station, to make you aware. But I don't want to, because...
No, that's fine, and I respect where you're coming from, Mr. Hedgel, and of course, I respect your perspective, given your background. Have you talked to the Board of Health about your concerns?
No, because I want it to be just a neutral. I'd like to make the Board of Selectmen aware of what I see. And then you can take it from there. And to sit with 2 selectmen, I feel better if you don't have a quorum, number 1.
Right,
And if they feel after I've given this information that they want to bring it to the full board, fine. That's the best, because...
And would you be open to having the chair of the Board of Health as part of that conversation?
No, like I said, it's neutral. This is my...
Okay, I'm just trying to be respectful of,
Well,
you
isn't
know.
that? I'm just bringing the information to you, and from there, you can bring it to the board.
Okay, Mary,
We'll
can
pull it
you
together.
have your people call his people and try to coordinate? And who would like to be part of that conversation? Mr. Bloss? Anybody else?
Sure.
Mr.
It's your industry. I don't know if you wanted to.
Yeah, I'm on the lowest level. Since you bumped me out of the school thing, I'll definitely talk to Mr. Redshill about this.
All right, so we'll coordinate a time with Mr. Bloss and Mr. Hickey. Mary will be in touch with you, and we'll get that ball rolling.
If you had a town administrator, I feel that we should probably discuss this.
We do have a town administrator.
Oh, no, I'm talking about, the administrator and the Town Administrator Act. And you covered some things that I will probably discuss, and in that it's so vague, some of that Town Administrator Act that,
So do you want me to pull this together while I'm still here, or do you want to wait until
Fine, no,
John gets here?
I think the sooner the better.
Okay, all right.
And
But after the holidays, Mr. Hedgel, right?
no.
No? You trying to get this done?
No, I'm flexible there, but I don't have to wait that long.
I mean, because Christmas is next Wednesday.
Well, we'll see what everybody's availability is. We'll float the balloon and see what happens. But
I don't think it's going to take more than a half an hour, what I got to say.
okay.
You have so much on your plate, and so many things. You talk about the school, you talk about finance, you talk about everything. And when I see something that should probably bring to your attention, that's what this is all about.
Yeah, we appreciate that. And I'm sorry we tortured you by having you sit through. And that
No,
wasn't.
I wouldn't
yeah.
want to, what I have to say now, I didn't want to interrupt your schedule tonight.
Well, we appreciate that, and thank you for persevering. We very seldom have somebody make it to the very end, so thank you.
Kareen always
I
does.
will say, shout out to Ms. Cafardo. Mrs. Cafardo is very dedicated. All right, and with that shout out, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All right.
Good night.
Merry Christmas to everybody.
Thank you, Carol, thank you.
Happy New Year.
And